Hari Om. We are in chapter 15. Chapter 15 is all about Purushottama Yoga. That is the title. That means that the nature of that Brahman, the nature of that ultimate reality, consciousness, that powerhouse of energy that powers everything in the world, that is avyaya, it cannot be extinguished ever. It is existing forever and eternal. This Purusha, if we need to understand this Purusha, first of all, the first two verses of chapter 15, Bhagwan has said, first understand the nature of sansar. Okay, so the nature of sansar has been described already in the first two verses using the analogy of a tree, the Ashwatthah or the people tree. The Ashwatthah or the people tree, in very simple terms, has aerial roots, and those roots are the symbol of vasanas or our karma, which create these impressions of our personality and which go back to the soil. So the aerial roots go back to the soil, and that vasana takes root in the soil, giving birth to newer and newer trees. That means newer and newer births. So Ashwatha tree in one sense is a kind of symbolic representation of this sansar. Sansar is what? Everything that is manifest in the world, which has become from seed form to sthula form manifest outside, and it can be seen, and you can see vastu and vyakti and action and karma. Everything is visible to all the senses or able to be sensed by the senses. So manifest. That is our sansar. And the moment we get into this very active sansar, we think that we are also kriyashil. We meaning our Atma. So we are coming to that. The whole chapter is that if sansar is binding you like the Ashwatha tree aerial roots going back to the soil and giving birth to more and more janmas, then where is our mind? Our mind is on all the leaves. The leaves of the tree stand for all the karma that we do. How do we do this karma? Driven by what? So in the tree, the leaves are nourished by water. Now this water is not visible outside, and therefore it is still, but we know that it is nourished because the leaves are sprouting. Now our karma that we keep doing, good or bad karma or indifferent, whatever, we are driven to it, and that is being driven by the invisible subconscious level guna. It's not visible, it's in very, very sukshma form, gunas, so sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. We are not aware of it, but the idea is to be aware whether sattvic guna is driving us or rajasic or tamasic. If we are not aware, we cannot even move up the ladder towards sattvic and then towards Paramatma, which is the last step. We cannot, because it's invisible. Just like in the tree, the water is nourishing invisibly, and it is making the karma or the leaves sprout. So also our karma just keeps going on and on and on, in the sense sometimes we are good, sometimes we are very, very generous, sometimes we are irritable, sometimes we are not in the mood to forgive, very unforgiving, adamant, sometimes in a very bad temper. Whatever our gunas, if we give more and more nourishment to it, in the sense practice it more and more, that becomes our predominant guna. So sattva, rajas and tamas is in everyone, but in what degree? So some people may have 80% sattva and of course 20% or 15% rajas, etc. But the more we practice any one, and we are driven by the guna, not knowing that we practice any particular karma or attitude, that becomes ingrained and becomes stronger, and the predominant guna emerges as, oh, a very sattvic person. That doesn't mean sattvic people don't have a bit of rajas or tamas in them. So predominant guna is counted as that person's personality imprint. Okay, now we are saying in this chapter, now we have understood sansar, how we are binding ourselves over and over and over again through our gunas and karma and our vasanas, and back into the ground, the soil sprouting again. Okay, understood sansar. Now in the third verse, Bhagwan is saying, and in one swift master stroke, he says in the third verse, he says, Ashwatthamenam suvirudha moolam Sangashastrena dridhena chitva Okay, you see this tree now, you've understood what this sansar is and how you are involved in it and bound to it. Now just cut that tree asunder. Cut it, chop it. Asanga shastrena dridhena chitva. This is Krishna's advice. Like once you understood how that's why the first two verses, to make us understand, okay, we are going round in cycles. Now just cut it asunder. Not a very easy task, because we think that we are part of the sansar, but actually we are part of Atma. And the sansar which is Nashwar, we start identifying with that, and therefore the ups and downs of the sansar, which is the paristhiti and vyakti and vastu and situations, are affecting us as our own ups and downs and sukha, dukha, etc. Our identification. Bhagavan says, just cut it. Asanga shastrena dridhena chitva. You have my permission, Krishna says. Just cut it. He tells Arjun. Cut that silly tree which is binding you to this earth. Now, kahan se cut kare? Kaise cut kare? Where do I begin this? And how do I cut it? So he says, asanga shastrena. Ye shastra hai na aapke paas. कौन सा शस्त्र? असंगता का. असंग मीन्स डिटैचमेंट. संग यानी अटैचमेंट. असंगता का शस्त्र लो, उठाओ एंड जस्ट चॉप इट. इजियर सेड देन डन. क्योंकि जहां हमारा बंधन है वहीं से तो काटेंगे ना. व्हेन अ रोप इज नॉटेड, वी अननॉट द रोप वेयर द नॉट इज. वी कैन सेपरेट द रोप and free the rope only where it is knotted. We cannot do it anywhere else. What is our point of bondage to the sansar? Attachment. So naturally that seems to be the point where the axe or the shastra should fall. It's as simple as that. We don't have to look very far to say, how do I begin? Nothing. Just one simple advice. Attachment is binding you to the sansar and to continuous cycles of janma, maran and dukha, and janma, maran and vyadhi and jara and old age and jara, vyadhi. It's binding you. Okay, cut it from that point. So, but for that we have to understand, in order to even want to cut it, because our attachment is very dear to us. You see, that is something we hold so dear to us that it gives us a sense of security. It gives us a sense of fulfillment. In fact, our attachment to the world, to whatever we are attached to, our vastu, all the objects that we accumulate and things, give us a sense of our own identity. Arey, main ye hu. My own identity, my own security and my own comfort is drawn from my attachments. So how can I cut my attachment? ये तो आपने बहुत ही you asked me for a very tall order. अर्जुन ये सोच रहे होंगे जब कृष्ण ने बोला कि you have to cut this tree, the tree of sansar, at the point of attachment. That is a clear and unequivocal advice and directive from Krishna. Unequivocal. इसमें सोचने की क्या बात है? He's saying, I am not even going to mince words and say ये कर लो वो कर लो. Nothing. Attachment is binding you. It is giving you a sense of security and comfort in the world, and that is what is bringing you into more and more janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi again and again and again. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Having said that, Bhagavan says, okay, now it's not easy for me to get out of my sense of identity. I identify with all my attachments. And my family is my attachment, my objects, my car, my house, my bungalow, my achievements, my talents, whatever, everything is my attachment. How can I cut it and then go into one shunya? For that, Bhagavan says, yes, I'm not going to leave you floundering in the quicksand. Chinmayaji used to say that when you see a man sinking in the quicksand is daldal, you have to give him a branch overhead to hold on to. Otherwise, you can keep telling him that, okay, yes, you can come out of it, you can come out of it. ये तो बहुत attachment है. You are attached to the quicksand. निकलो उसमें से. No matter how much he thrashes about, the quicksand will suck him in further and further. Sansar is like that. Sansar will pull us in unless we have a higher branch overhead to hang on to. That overhead branch should be some knowledge about Paramatma, some knowledge about a higher truth. Otherwise, I have nothing to hang on to. तो मैं अपने अटैचमेंट को ब्रेक करके या छितवा करके I have no idea where I am going to land up, and that gives me a sense of blankness and insecurity, and I wouldn't want to go where I don't have a goal and somebody points the way and says, हाँ आप इस direction में चले जाओ. I would still say मंजिल क्या है? What is my ultimate goal, isn't it? Therefore, this chapter 15 is all about that. He's saying, okay, you can cut your tree of sansar, but Purushottama, that ultimate truth, you have to know its nature. You have to know the nature of that. And therefore, this chapter continues with holding on to that branch, that goal, that vision of the highest. And that is in 4th verse onwards. Tatah padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyah tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatah pravrittih prasrita purani. Seek that goal. Tatah padam tat parimargitavyam. एक मार्ग, वो goal, वो आपको ढूंढना है. You have to find it for yourself. Yes, of course you have the scriptures and you have Mahatmas and you have teachers and gurus. They are the ones who are pointing the way. They are not the goal. They are not standing at the goal post and saying, "Aa jao mere paas." No, they're pointing the way. And they're saying the journey has to be yours. Find that goal, Bhagwan is saying, that higher goal. Until then you will be sinking in the quicksand and thrashing about and saying, "मैं तो बहुत दुखी हूँ and I can't get out of this sukha, dukha and dvandva." You know, the dvandva, the duality of sukha, dukha, shita, ushna, man, apman, jay, parajay, and labh, alabh, labh and nuksan. This dvandva is a continuous part of sansar. Actually, it is the nature of sansar. Like you say, the nature of daldal is to suck you in because that's its nature. And then you thrash about in it. Bhagwan says, find that higher goal. Yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyah. Okay. Now that highest goal is what? The entire world is matter. Once we understand that, the question will arise that am I just a piece of matter? And am I just born here for that set number of years, whatever number, just to interact with matter around me? People, vastu, vyakti, paristiti, relationships, situations, sansar, objects, everything is matter. Is that all? The moment a person comes to that question, that the entire world is just inert, jad, matter, including my body, mind and intellect, then I need to know what is the higher truth. In order to detach from this jada, in order to detach from this jad matter, I must know the higher truth. Tat padam, tat parimargitavyam. Seek that by loosening your grip a little bit on the sansar. You know, it's like saying कि मुझे मंजिल पहले दिखा दो. Okay, but you have to trust the Shastras and the Gurus and the Mahatmas who have been writing, the Rishis, that you can approach that manzil, but they are telling you, first loosen your grip on the world. That they can even show you that vision only when your grip is loosened. Because if I have a very tight grip on sansar, which means what? I'm attached to my saris, my jewelry, my friends, my extrovertedness, my man, my apman, my prashansa, vitteshna, putreshna. So you have seen this. That attachment, Bhagwan is saying, it's like loosen that grip a little bit. Only then I can take you one step forward. It's like the 4 boatmen who one fine day decided that yes, we've been drinking too much. This world is too shallow for us and we've had enough of this world, and now they're looking for a high philosophy of life. So 4 drunken men, but with a high ideal in their mind, with बड़े नेक इरादे से कि बस हमको तो एक higher truth, I'm going to this holy city. And they descended the steps. I've quoted this story before. They descended the steps of the ghat and they said by morning we are going to reach this holy city and we are going to turn over a new leaf और हमारी जिंदगी अब बदलने वाली है and we'll begin a very sattvic life now. And with very good intentions, what they did was they rode and they rode and they rode all night. And when it was dawn, guess what they saw? They saw that they were on the same ghat, but they had worked very hard, you see. So there are people, they will do a lot of karma in the world, a lot of pious intentions, temple service to the nation, and reading of scriptures. Don't forget that was a lot of people who will do a lot of things, but it will be flapping around on the same ghat. Why? Because they forgot to do one important thing. They were on the same ghat because they had forgotten to unhook the anchor, to take the anchor off. So the anchor of sansar, of sansari attachment was still in the ground. तब आप कितना ही कर्म कर लीजिए, अरे मैं तो बहुत परमार्थ करता हूँ, मैं बहुत डोनेशन करता हूँ, आई रीड द स्क्रिप्चर्स, मैं बाबा की लेक्चर्स में हमेशा बैठता हूँ, चाहे जाग के या सो के, बट यू नो आई एम डूइंग सो मेनी थिंग्स. वी हैव सीन पीपल हु डू दैट. दे गेट इन्वॉल्व्ड with good intentions, no doubt. At least that is one step to loosen their grip. But all this karma, puja and archana and rituals and ceremonies and yagya and paramarth and dharmic काम, okay, that's good. And तीर्थ यात्रा, बहुत कुछ है, सब कुछ करिए आप, लेकिन इसमें असर कितना होगा? 1% भी नहीं होगा, क्योंकि उसके पहले आपने संसार के जो अटैचमेंट्स थे ना, वो हमने एंकर निकाला ही नहीं, एंकर के साथ वहीं पर रो किए जा रहे हैं. सो ये बहुत मेहनत वेस्ट होती है. तो भगवान सेज इवन व्हेन यू नो योर गोल, रियलाइज इट, नोइंग दैट व्हेन यू डिसोसिएट with your grip on sansar, only then you can make some progress. Then what remains? When I move forward and the sansar has become less and less important for me, then what happens? What remains? Suddenly I am struck with a sense of insecurity, because attachments and family and people and my nation, my religion, my nationality, जो भी चीज़ें हम अपने से जोड़े हुए होते हैं, हमारा धर्म, हमारी जाति, हमारा कुल, हमारा मान, ये हमारी सिक्योरिटी, हम उसको छोड़ देंगे तो हम कुछ नहीं रहेंगे. एंड दैट इनसिक्योरिटी ग्रिप्स अस. भगवान सेज नो, इफ यू नो दैट यू आर लुकिंग फॉर द हायर ट्रूथ, दैट हायर ट्रूथ विल लुक आफ्टर यू. धर्मो रक्षति रक्षितः. You look after dharma, you take care of the true knowledge, that true knowledge will look after you. It will never let you sink. Dharmo rakshati rakshitah. But in the second line, Bhagavan says, Yasmin gata nanivartanti bhuyah. Second phrase of the first line. Yasmin gata, आप ऐसी जगह जब अगर पहुंच गए हैं, when you have realized that there is something higher to contemplate and I am heading for it, and even when you realize that higher truth, when you retire from extrovertedness, then your mind turns within, because there is no other way to turn. There is only an outside looking world and an inward looking sansar. I mean, there's no sansar inside. We bring it in actually with all our thoughts and our mind and our dwelling and our brooding on it. We bring that sansar within us. But the outside world is just matter, and it's outside. Once you detach from it a little bit and say, okay, I've experienced everything, the jewelry and the parties and the drinking and the friends with the same aimless talk all the time, repetitive aimless talk about stocks and finance and politics, and okay, fine, but what's the purpose of it all? When we draw away, even while we are living that reality, even when we are living and transacting with the world, there is no other way to turn except within. Once we turn away from outside, there is only one way, and that is to retire from extrovertedness. Once we retire, where do we go? We go home. And that home is our Atma, where we have to realize. When Atma has two simple qualities. One, wherever Atma is, there is no loneliness. You cannot experience loneliness. You can be alone, you can be up in the mountains, you can be, that's why the rishis can stay there for years together, because we may be alone, and if we stay alone in our room or in our house for a while, we're not used to it, and that loneliness strikes us, and out of our own restlessness, we just go out to say that I need some interaction. Yes, I know we are social animals, but the extent to which we are indulging in the sansar outside makes us more and more extroverted. Now, Atma is something that if you realize that it's with you and it is you, that contemplation itself will never let us feel lonely. There is no such thing as loneliness. So when we can be alone, but never lonely. Loneliness is a sense of a restless mind. Loneliness is a demand of a restless mind saying, I want something from outside. But when I don't want anything from outside, I cannot be lonely. So loneliness actually is non-existent, because the sansar is also mithya. And also the second thing about Atma is that it is not a matter of study. It is not something that we can read the description and understand it. So it's like saying that, okay, so if someone, I have never been to the ocean and I lived in the hills all my life, suppose, and someone tries to describe the ocean to me and I've been in the hills and he says, it's vast and it's big and it moves and it comes and splashes on the shores and it's liquid. And sometimes it's brooding, and sometimes it's turbulent, and sometimes it's calm. I'll say, what? What are you describing? Sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, and some in some places very deep, and at the shore, coming and touching the shores of my city, and it's vast. I just can't understand. It's impossible. So Atma, with a description of the rishis, the best possible description, will not get us there. So that's why only the experience of the ocean will get me. And say, okay, my experience is okay, go to the shore, come to my city, come to my lovely Bombay, and I'll take you to the beaches and I'll show you the ocean. That experience, first-hand experience, is the only touch with the truth. Truth means truth of the ocean or anything outside. So also with Atma. It may be described in a number of scriptures. We may read scriptures till kingdom come together in our satsang. But no, the description won't get us there. It has to be in that inward looking, deep meditative silence, where the sansar has been quietened completely, and yet there is this pulsating, luminous energy that pervades our self, our mind, all our senses, which have been quietened from going outside. But that luminosity, that energy, that vibration, that vibrance remains with us. It cannot go, but we feel it with more intensity. It's there with us even now, even when we are shouting at the guard outside, or screaming in the traffic, or having a brawl about something at the shop. Yes, that Atma is still with us, but that vibrancy is not felt because our attention is not on it. Our attention is on the outside. कि इसने मुझे ऐसा क्यों कह दिया, वो इस तरह से क्यों, why did the situation turn against me, etc., etc., etc. My attention is on that. So Bhagavan says, okay, once you know this highest, in the deepest of meditation, this luminosity, this vibrance, this eternity, because it has no end. It is eternal, like the mind. You can say, okay, I'm going to see, today I'm going to close my eyes and see how far my mind can reach. The mind does not have a physical limit because it's a sukshma thing. Same way, Atma doesn't have a limit. So we see this limitlessness in our deepest meditation, and suddenly we realize this limitlessness is me, and it is the highest truth. The real me, of course, because I always think of myself with a naam, rupa and all that. ये मेरा नाम है, ये औधा है, ये पद है और ये रूप है. नहीं, not that. The real me is that limitlessness. So it's only when I say to someone, come down to Bombay, come to the beach and see the ocean. It's like the rishi is saying, meditate, go within yourself, draw away from the extrovertedness, go deep within, and you will touch that reality, because there is no other thing besides that. So when you have broken your ties with the outside world, there is no choice but to feel the presence of this other thing, so-called other, kshetra kshetragyam. It is the other, but our attention is not on it. So now he's saying, yasmin gata, once if you've been there, nanivartanti bhuyaha, how can you forget it? If I have been introduced to the ocean once by someone, can I ever forget and next time go to Visakhapatnam and say, hey, what's this? हाँ, मैंने बॉम्बे में देखा था, उन्होंने कहा था ओशन है, but somebody took me to France or Visakhapatnam and say, then I see the ocean and again, will I ask, what is this again? No, you cannot forget it. Atma is like that. Once you're introduced to it, you know that's the truth. You just cannot forget it. It's like the musician. Once he knows the true sura, उनको एकदम perfect सुर लगाना आ गया ना, तो वो बेसुरा कभी हो ही नहीं सकते. It's not possible for a musician. In the same way, once we know, we have experienced firsthand, not the description, but firsthand experience of that vibrance, of that limitlessness. Because in deep meditation, there is a silence and it's also limitless and it's vibrating. You cannot forget it. You cannot suddenly say, what is this? So, Yasmin Gata, once you go there, Nanivartanti Bhuyah. Once you have been shown a flower, can you next time be shown a flower and you say, hey, what's this? No, that would be very silly. Therefore, once we know what is the highest truth, experienced it, not just read it, is it possible for us to go back to murta and ignorance and jadata? Probably not. Then it's not really not possible. I'm talking about the real experience and not the reading of the highest truth. Having experienced and touched that highest truth and realized that, oh, this is me, this limitlessness, and what am I doing in this flapping around in the shallow part of the ocean in this sansar. When it hits you once, it's not possible to go back to murta and to ignorance and to confusion about this sansar. Where having gone, none returns again. That's the promise of Krishna, that you won't return. You will actually move towards moksha, if not attain complete moksha. But there are 5 disciplines. There are 5 disciplines that you have to practice, says Krishna to Arjun, if you want to come to that state. It's not easy. You just jump to a train and come to the ocean and experience the ocean. Okay, now he says in verse number 5, Nirmana moha jita sanga doshaha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha Dandvair vimokta sukha dukha samgyaihi gacchantya mudha padam avyayam tata. Nirmana moha. Be nirmana moha. Yes, we had done this. We had touched upon this. First of all, the first discipline is अपना मान और मोह, pride and delusion जिसको हम पकड़ के रखे हुए हैं ना, we have to free ourselves of that. Otherwise, it's like saying, मैं ट्रेन में हूँ, मैं ट्रेन छोड़ के नहीं जाऊँगा, लेकिन मुझे बीच देखना है, गोराई बीच. बॉम्बे में मैं आ गया हूँ because the ऋषि said कि मैं ओशन दिखाता हूँ, but मैं ट्रेन को पकड़ के बैठा हूँ. नहीं, अगर मैं अपने मान को, मोह को, प्राइड एंड डिल्यूजन को पकड़े हुए हूँ, it's not even possible to reach that highest truth because there complete silence and detachment is required. So Bhagavan says, Nirmana moha ban jao, because we have an exaggerated opinion about ourselves. मैं तो ये हूँ, मैं तो वो हूँ, मैं तो मेरे talents ये हैं, मेरा achievements ये हैं, मैं तो इतनी दूर तक चला आया हूँ life में, मैंने ये किया है, फलां फलां. And your descriptions are descriptions about ourselves, what we like, what we dislike. Whether people are interested or not, we go on and on and on about our outer self, this outer, and take great pride in it. मैं तो ये करता हूँ, करती हूँ. Now, to maintain that image, we are doing work all the time. That means trying to maintain that image, do more and more karma. Anyway, the first condition is, if you are stuck to this outer self and taking great pride in this, exaggerated pride in this, this jad, artificial, non-satya self of yourself, the body mind, you have to just drop it. Jita sanga doshaha, second discipline. Be victorious over the evils of your attachment. First of all, मैं ये हूँ, उसका मान छोड़ दो, मोह छोड़ दो. And jita sanga doshaha, all your attachments, as we have said, the whole Gita, this word detachment will be repeated so many times that we'll wonder why Arjun needs so many repetitions. Because Arjun is like us. We, by listening to Krishna, by reading the scriptures, even if Krishna stands right here in front of us and blesses us and says, I really wish you could be free of your attachments to family and nationality and religion and sect and body and achievements and your man and apman, not apman. I would probably find it very hard because it's so deeply encrusted. So Bhagavan says, don't live on the surface. Your true potential to realize the highest waits for you. Your potential is waiting for you and you can realize it. But for that you have to give up the lower in order to attach to the higher. Adhyatma nityaha, dwelling constantly in adhyatma, in the self. Attention has to be on the higher self, on the higher truth. I'm calling it self, which is a capital S, because this Atma which we are is an Amsha of the same Paramatma. So you can, the Bhakta find it easy to put their attention on a symbol like a Krishna or a Ram or a Shiva or a Vishnu. But actually it is the symbol of the same one highest truth. Now, Bhagavan is saying, Adhyatma Nityaha, why don't you attach to the highest truth? Keep your mind on Narayan. Narayan could be outside as a symbol, it could be the inner self. It depends on whether we are doing Dhyan Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, etc. Vinir Vritta Kamaha. Just retire from your desires. Because the desire is what actually? Yes, we are born with a bundle of inbuilt subconscious desires because of our previous karma and vasanas, but we also build up a very big collection of desires even as we are living on day out. Where does it arise? It is the function of the mind and your intellect which is giving us more and more desires. It's a function of mind and intellect. Is that mind and intellect important? It's important for us to function in the world, to do well in the world, to be able to give back to society, to excel in whatever skill or profession we are. But beyond that, the mind and intellect actually has no function. It cannot reach us to Bhagwan. I mean, in the ultimate sense. Of course, it can take us there because right now we are using our mind and intellect only in order to understand the scriptures. But it is the same mind and intellect which draws us into the sansar with more and more desires. Now we have to silence that. In meditation, mind and intellect can be silenced. Dvandvai vimuktaha, the fifth discipline. Dvandvai. Dvandvi, we are very much aware of that word by now. It means duality. It means that we are caught, always caught in some duality. At the body level, Shita Ushna, comfort, discomfort. मुझे ये चाहिए, ये ठीक लगता है, वो ठीक नहीं लगता, यहाँ नींद आती है, वहाँ नींद नहीं आती, ऐसे कपड़े ठीक लगते हैं, वैसे नहीं, और ऐसे ट्रैवल करना अच्छा लगता है, वैसे ट्रैवल नहीं. I can pray in this corner, I can't pray there. It's the body which is demanding that you just cannot give up its comfort. This bodily comfort we share in common with the animal kingdom and the bird kingdom. They have the same need. मुझे comfort चाहिए बस. This part we share with them. What about the mind, the sukha dukha? It is at the mind level. So this part we can sort of detach ourselves from this sukha dukha which is driving us into more and more karma by just saying, having this prasad buddhi. It has come in Karma Yoga, chapter 3. प्रसाद बुद्धि रख लीजिए कि जो भी हो रहा है, जो भी आ रहा है मेरी झोली में, good, bad. Good, bad is also my description about what is anukul or pratikul according to me. But by itself, nothing is right or wrong or good or bad or ugly or evil. It is just the way it is. The entire sansar. And when it comes to me and it doesn't match up with my expectations or likes and dislikes, I call it pratikul and then I resist it. Just take everything, whatever मेरी झोली में आ रहा है, प्रसाद, भगवान का प्रसाद. Prasad buddhi keeps us away from this dvandva of sukha dukkha and also at the buddhi level of man and apman. So in the second chapter, Bhagwan had described the body level dvandva of shita ushna, comfort, discomfort. मुझे ऐसा comfort चाहिए and the air conditioning should be just so much, otherwise मुझे वो lecture भी नहीं समझ में आ रहा. Sometimes in the hall it happens when we are at some lecture of some Swami and there are people constantly complaining कि Swami ji ये fan यहाँ नहीं चल रहा, Swami ji it's too cold at the back or it's too hot in the front or whatever. Swami ji only laughs and he says, तुम अपने शरीर के शीत सुख दुख से उठोगे ना ऊपर, थोड़ा सा उसको भूल के, तभी सुन पाओगे मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ. And it happens in every lecture. There will always be someone complaining that something is not physically comfortable for them. So this emphasis that we give to our physical comfort, that this car is too hot or that car is too small or this house is too uncomfortable, is actually the Shita Ushna Dvandva of Moha Kalilam. Moha Kalilam actually means daldal, which is the word used in the second chapter. Strong word to be used of our obsession with our physical comfort. Moha Kalilam, that is like daldal. We can't get out of it. But Bhagavan says, Dvandvai muktaha sukha-dukha samgyahi gacchantya mudhaha. That means those who are amudha, undeluded, amudha, padamavyayam tata, they can reach the highest goal. If all this is not troubling them, just like the Swami says कि अरे मेरी बात सुनने के लिए तुमको अपना मन तो शांत रखना चाहिए, अब तुम लगे हुए हो कि ये सही नहीं है, वो सही नहीं है, physical comfort, the chairs are not right, I can't hear at the back. नहीं, hear तो जरूरी है, स्वामी जी का lecture. And therefore we are unable to actually reach the highest, because even when I am in the hall listening to the lecture of the Swami, and it's completely comfortable and the temperature is just right and everything is perfect, but my mind is dwelling on some upset that happened in the family. Somebody said something and my mind is again on the sukha dukha. So the mind is also in another dvandva. एक होता है शरीर का द्वंद्व, comfort discomfort, एक मन का द्वंद्व कि मुझे उसने दुखी किया, ऐसा क्यों बोला. Bhagavan says get out of dvandva first. This word has come umpteen number of times in the Gita. Dvandva. Duality is not the nature of Atma. Duality, Dvandva, is the nature of Sansar, is the nature of Prakriti. And Prakriti, of course, is Mithya. Yeah? So, yad drishyam tad jadam. Whatever is visible or experienceable is jadam. And yad jadam tat mithya. जो जड़ है, वो anyway मिथ्या है. And yat mithya, tat asat. जो मिथ्या है वो सत्य कैसे हो सकता है. Therefore in the sansar, whenever we are saying oh comfort discomfort, oh sukha dukha, oh man apman, we are actually dealing with mithya asat. So Bhagavan says dvandva, ye duality se niklo. Duality is the nature of sansar. It is not the nature of your own atma or consciousness. Consciousness is just one indivisible, eternal, avyaya truth. And therefore द्वंद्व विमुक्ताः सुख दुख समज्ञैः गच्छन्त्य विमूढ़. जो अमूढ़ होते हैं वो come out of this ignorance, they are actually able to get undeluded. गच्छन्ति अमूढ़ाः. Beautiful verse, 5th verse, 15th chapter. Now for this vidya, Bhagavan says, what is that higher reality? अगर आपने ये 5 disciplines practice कर भी लिए कि निर्मान मोह, I want to shed my pride, and I'm conscious of it that I'm speaking out of arrogance or pride or holier than thou. मैं तो ये जानता हूँ. जब हमको ज्ञान होने लगता है, ज्ञान यानी किताबी ज्ञान, तो अक्सर ऐसा होता है कि सरस्वती आने से पहले ना एक there's an animal called pride that walks right in front saying मैं हूँ. So we have to be careful. So if I practice this discipline of loosening my grip on pride, yes, I may reach the truth. Jita sanga doshaha, my attachments and my desires, vinivritta kamaha, dvandvai vimuktaha. Be aware that I am getting caught, I am catching myself in dvandva of the world. Then these disciplines will lead me to what? What is that highest truth? So Bhagavan says in the 6th verse, let me tell you, Bhagavan says I will describe, but you have to again experience it for yourself. No description will reach you there. It's like the swimming instructor saying, I'll take you to the Olympics, I'll make you an Olympic swimmer. Now you just follow my instructions and listen to me carefully. Yes, I'm listening. I go to his lecture every day, day in and day out for years together. And I listen to his lecture कि swimming ऐसे होती है, your strokes ऐसे होते हैं, depth of the water ऐसा होता है. But those lectures are not going to get me anywhere. Not going to get me anywhere near the water, leave alone get me near the Olympics. Olympics agar Paramatma hai to. It will not get me anywhere. But still Bhagavan says, let me describe that highest truth to you. It is in the 6th verse. Na tad bhasayate suryoho न शशांको न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम. It's a mystical language again. Once again, mystical analogies have been used, not to be taken literally. Tad bhasayate suryoho. The sun cannot shine. Where? He's talking about which place? Where there is Paramatma. Paramatma, of course, is everywhere. But he's saying it is not where the sun can shine on it, or the moon, nor fire. Okay. So what does it mean? How will I know it? Because it is something that is still experienceable and visible without any gross form of light from outside falling on it, like the sun or the moon. Gross sources of light are not used, are not needed for it. So I'll give you a simple example. So if, I think we have practiced this before, you may take this pencil and see it with the eyes open. Okay, now you may shut your eyes and visualize the same pencil. Okay, if you saw the pencil with your eyes shut, the question is, I saw the pencil with my eyes open in the light of the room, but when my eyes were shut, in which light did I see that pencil? So that consciousness, that is called the light of awareness. In the light of awareness, one can experience, actually one experiences even the objects outside. But my physical eyes need the physical light outside. So the sun and the moon and the pavakaha, which is fire, are actually gross physical lights. I don't need that to know myself. अगर कमरे में एकदम से अंधेरा हो जाता है and there is a power cut and there is a power failure, and then I don't say कि अरे I can't see a thing, it's pitch dark. I don't say मैं कहाँ हूँ. मैं कहाँ हूँ, because just because I can't see myself physically, I don't say मैं कहाँ हूँ, because my awareness is always with me. That awareness is the light. Even in pitch darkness, it always is. So that's why it's a mystical way of saying that self-effulgent, self-luminous prakash is awareness or consciousness. That doesn't mean that when we are meditating and we see this white light, consciousness is not a physical form of light. Because light has properties, right? It has frequency, it has vibration, it has waves, it has particles. No, these are physical properties of physical light. But we have only that example to describe it, because we know the physical world. So you see the difficulty now of the person who is trying to describe the ocean, of the vastness of it and the depth of it, to someone who has always been in the hills and never seen it. It's like that. Light, we think of physical light. No, it doesn't have the properties. It is still a light which shines within. That's the light of awareness. And that is Puraha. That is dwelling within and dwelling everywhere. Okay, so that's one quality of that Purushaha. Bhagavan is trying to, in this chapter, is trying to give some indication of that Purushaha, that ultimate truth. So, the whole goal of Gita actually is for us to realize that Purushaha, that Puraha, that all-pervading truth. Puraha means that which pervades everything. Puraha. So, that Chetana, we are Chetan, we are awareness. We are not aware of something, we are awareness itself. So, for example, when I am in Sukha, does my Chetana change? Yes, my mind is saying I am Dukhi or Sukhi. And when I am Dukhi, does my Chetana or awareness also alter itself? No. So in Sukha, Dukha, Man, Apman and financial loss or gain or exhilaration or dejection, or it doesn't matter. That Chetana just remains. Undiminishing, unaltered. That Chetana is me. That's the real me. So then why does it seem that जब दुख हो रहा है तो मुझे हो रहा है, सुख हो रहा है तो मुझे हो रहा है, मान हो रहा है तो मेरा मान हो रहा है. देखो मुझे स्टेज पर बुला के फूल और कोकोनट दे रहे हैं, मेरा हो रहा है, मुझे ऐसा क्यों लगता है? So it's a bit like a भ्रम. Bhram is an illusion. So if you've taken a train, I'm sure we all have, but if we are sitting in a स्टेशनरी ट्रेन विच इज नॉट मूविंग, मेरी ट्रेन अभी चल नहीं रही है लेकिन बगल के ट्रैक पर एक ट्रेन है, वो भी खड़ी है, और थोड़ी देर बाद बगल की ट्रैक पर द ट्रेन स्टार्ट्स मूविंग स्लोली, and I'm just looking outside, not aware of my own train, and when I look outside I have this भ्रम for a moment, अरे हमारी ट्रेन चली, I am moving. ये भ्रम होता है कि नहीं होता है? So it's an optical illusion. In the same way, we have a spiritual illusion. We all have a delusion in life कि संसार में सब कुछ तो हो रहा है, इतने कर्म हो रहे हैं, इतने व्यक्ति हैं, इतने वस्तु, परिस्थिति, इतनी situations, so many hundreds of places still to explore. मुझे travel कितना करना है, धन इतना कमाना है, और अगर कमा लिया है तो उसको खर्च इतनी जगह करना है, खर्च करने के लिए क्या करना है, तो नई जगह ढूंढना है कि अब खर्च कहाँ करें, so restaurants and malls and people and gifts and parties and okay all that. The whole sansar seems full of movement, full of noise, full of din, and therefore we think कि मैं भी क्रियाशील हूँ. It's a भ्रम. Because we are looking at the sansar from the window of our stationary train, वो भ्रम हो जाता है कि मैं भी क्रियाशील meaning to say I am also involved in all the action, but actually it is not so. मैं ट्रेन में बैठा था, and then as soon as my attention came back to my train from the outside, I noticed that अरे my train is stationary, अभी तो it's not moving at all. The same way, when my attention from the outside noisy cacophonous world comes within, I notice, yes, there is silence, and there is stillness, and there is quietness, and really there is no movement. Chetana cannot move because it pervades everything. जो चीज हर जगह है, वो move कहाँ करेगी? From this place to that, how? So the moment we draw our attention to our Chetana, to ourselves, to our awareness, then we get out of this delusion that I am also Kriyashil. It is that example about a changing sansar and a sukhi dukhi situation which makes me think that मैं भी सुखी और दुखी हूँ. It's an illusion. Everything outside is an illusion actually. Yad gatva na nivartante. That was said in the earlier verse. That means once you realize this, you're not going to say that, oh, my train is moving. No, I just realized that my train is stationary. In myself, there is complete stillness. No movement is possible. When I reach that innermost core of my being, in deep meditation or in silence or in observing nature or just being by myself and staring blankly at the sky or sitting atop a mountain without a thought, when the movement of the mind, the movement of the thought is not there, there is that actual stillness which is my nature. So when I realize that, how can I go back to the mad noise and cacophony of the world, thinking ये मेरा है या मेरे लिए है, ममता and ममत्व मेरे लिए है, ये सब मेरे लिए हो रहा है. Whatever is happening around us, in our immediate surrounding of family and society and people and profession and wealth. Yes, it's happening around us, लेकिन it is not happening for us, the real self. Yad gatva na nivartante, Bhagavan has said again. You know something? This word was repeated. Yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyah. In the fourth verse, Bhagavan said exactly the same thing in different words. Once having known that truth, the fourth verse में उन्होंने कहा था यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूयः. How can you forget it? यहाँ ये कह रहे हैं second line में यद् गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते. Having reached that truth, there is no return. Tad dhama paramam mama. That is my supreme abode. That's when you reach my supreme abode, to know that highest truth. So some further descriptions of that highest Purusha, some more descriptions are needed. First of all, we have seen it is self-effulgent, self-luminous. It doesn't need another outside light. It doesn't need the study of some scholars or scriptures or rishis to describe it. No, even before the rishis wrote it down or realized it or meditated on that highest truth, it still existed. It existed even before the Big Bang, when there were no rishis. So it's not as if it needs to be lit or written about or described. By described also we mean lighting it, yes, through words. No, that is one quality. And the other quality is that once you reach it, it's not possible to return to darkness, to return to the knowledge of darkness. That's a beautiful way of saying, having known light, will you always then describe darkness? कि मैं अंधेरे में हूँ. So it's not possible. That's why he says these two qualities, tad dhama paramam mama, will reach you to me. Further descriptions are coming up in the very words of Bhagwan to Arjun. Verse number 7. Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhutah sanatanaha manashasthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. Okay, Mamaivamsho jiva loke. Although I am indivisible, I meaning Krishna, consciousness, awareness, that Param Satya, it is indivisible of course. But when it expresses itself in the jiva, it expresses itself as an ansha of that jiva. It's like saying that there is this light which is streaming in through my window from the sun. So the sunlight in my room, is it different from the sunlight outside? No, it is an ansha of it. It's a part of it. Is it the total of that sunlight which is outside? No, outside there is much more. In the same way, the space inside my room, is it different from the space which is outside my room? No, in quality, in tattva, in its essence, it's not different. But it is in part, it's limited. Because my jiva, my body, is limiting it, right? So that room actually is like the body and the mind, which is limiting. We are limiting ourselves actually. But in tattva, in essence, it's the same consciousness. Like the space is the same as the space outside. It can't be that the space outside has a different quality of being able to get wet or lit up or be sliced. No, it's the same quality. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha. You just cannot slice it or cut it. Same essence. Now, the jiva is a reflection. Let's call it like that. It's an ansha. So Bhagavan is saying, I am just an ansha, a part of me. Mamai vamsho, ansha, jiva loke. Aapke jeev lok mein main ek ansh hu. So it's like the moonlight which reflects in the bucket of water, and we'll keep looking at the bucket of water and thinking, oh, I'm looking at Param Tattva. I'm looking at, yes, you are looking in one sense at that Param Tattva. It's in the jeev, it's in every jiva. But like the Buddhist nun who kept thinking that she was worshipping the ultimate truth by looking at the reflection of the moon in her bucket, and she carried it with great care, thinking that that is the highest truth. And then she stumbled and fell and the water spilled out, and suddenly and there was no reflection in the bucket, the water spilled out. Then when she looked up, she saw the real moon. So it is only when this obsession with our Shita, Ushna and Sukha, Dukha and Man, Apman, this body, mind, intellect obsession is stopped. It's like spilling of the water, and that in that silence is the only time we can see the original, the ultimate truth, the original one. Because this nun saw the original moon. It's not that she was looking at the false moon, no, but she was looking at the reflection. In the same way, Paramatma reflects in all of us as a reflection. But what about that moon, when the moon was shaking in the water, was the original moon shaking? Of course not. So when we say कि मुझे दुख हो रहा है, मुझे सुख हो रहा है, your tattva, the essence of consciousness inside remains original. It cannot be affected by the sukha dukha outside. In the same way, the moon up there is not affected because it's the waves on the surface of the water which are actually making it turbulent or making it look shaky. That's why when we get very shaken or disturbed or calm or cruel or jealous or angry or sad or devastated at the death of someone, all that actually is on the surface because we are reflecting. And consciousness, it's not possible for the moon to get affected by the waves on which it is reflecting. It's just not possible. In the same way, our consciousness, our true self cannot be affected if we identify with that true self. So we are the Ansh. That is another new quality that Bhagavan has talked about, and it powers all our senses. Naturally, if consciousness was not there, it would not power my senses, and I would be as good as a piece of wood. Then Bhagavan says, let me tell you some more qualities of this Purusha. This whole chapter is about the nature of Atma, the nature of Paramatma. Purusha Yoga. Number 8. Shariram yadvapnoti yachapyutkramati गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात्. It powers, that Paramatma powers all our senses. And what are our senses? Well, the sense of touch and taste and etc. And our mind also, with the capacity to think and to reflect and to judge people or to hate people or to like. It's all in the mind level. Bhagavan says that Ansh of Paramatma, that consciousness, gives us the capacity to do all this, to use our senses or mind. And when that consciousness decides to quit this particular jiva, then it takes away all these qualities with it. Naturally, when you see a person who has just passed away, that person's eyes and ears and organs, outer organs are all intact, but that person still cannot hear or speak or sense or touch. Why? Because organs are there. The organs in any case are inert. Without consciousness, all our organs are inert. They are jad. And when consciousness decides to leave, it takes away all these capacities from us. Of course, we know that because we have seen a dead person cannot function. So here what we are trying to say, Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna, is that the subtle body with our collection of impressions and vasanas, it leaves. But the gross, whatever is gross, which we are looking after so well and embellishing it all the time, our appearance and our possessions, embellishing it and polishing it and taking care of it, and so much attention is on all this, that's just going to be left behind. At death, that gross body is left behind and the subtle body carries on. The consciousness seems to carry the impression of your personality, and remember the personality, sattva, rajas, tamas, those impressions it carries ahead with it. How? Almost like now the comparison given here in the second phrase is Vayur Gandhani Vashayat. Just like when the wind blows and the wind just passes over flowers and it carries the scent of those flowers ahead. It has not touched the flower, it has not smelled the flower, it has not even descended on the flower. The wind just passed over that gross object called the flower, but the scent from it captured and carried forward. So actually when we say vasana, the word vasana comes from the word vas, which means scent. And that scent of ours is the impression of our personality, which this consciousness carries. Vayur Gandhani Vasha, just like the scent of the flower on the wind. And it goes to the next life and it carries it forward to the next life. That is the other quality. It carries the scent with it. So consciousness is not affected by what we are doing. It is not the least concerned whether we are sukhi, dukhi, or hamara maan ho raha hai ki apman ho raha hai. But yes, how we react to all this, Shita, Ushna, Man, Apman and Sukha, Dukha, is forming our subtlemost personality, and that scent, that vas, that fragrance will be carried forward. So another example was like water which is spilt on a table, and you let that spilt water dry overnight. When you come in the morning, the water has dried, but it has left a very thin line of a shape where it had dried. It left that thin line on the table, a thin mark, the edges of it. Now if you very gently pour another cup of water in the same space, what does the water do? The water seems to adopt the same shape around the boundary of that shape. Why? It's exactly how our vasana is carrying us. What we are today is the making of our practices, our habits, our guna of sattva, rajas and tamas, which we chose to practice in so many lives before, and therefore what we choose to do now is taking the same shape and form around it. So this is another way of describing how our vasanas carry forward and affect us in our ensuing lives, and also come forward from our previous lives. That means what? That means the mind as I know it right now, my mind, mere man mein, we describe our mind quite frequently, almost as much as we talk about our bodily habits, we talk about our minds. That mind is nothing but a bundle of vasana, impressions, which is come forward because this jiva plus consciousness has assembled together. That's all. That's all that we are. And as I said, there are only two things in the world. We have a choice of associating ourselves with one or the other. Choice भी इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं है कि मैं किसके साथ associate करूँ. No choice. One is Prakriti, Jad, dead, Asat, Mithya. The other is consciousness, the only truth. So Kshetra, Kshetragyam, Prakriti and Purush, Sat and Asat, and Sansar and Paramatma. There are only two things. We have to choose. This is the declaration of the great Upanishads also, that it is our gunas which are binding us to this earth. I'll close with verse number 9. Some more qualities. The same thought has been extended a little bit about our senses being powered by consciousness. Number 9. Shotram chakshuspar-shanam cha rasanam ghranam cha adhisthaya manaschayam vishaya nupasevate. I, consciousness, awareness, I preside over the ears, that is the sense of hearing, and the eye, the sense of sight, the touch, that is the sense of touch, and taste and smell. And also, Bhagavan has extended one more sense. He's saying your mind is also an extension of your senses. Sixth sense, you can call it, if you wish. 5 senses plus mind. Bhagavan says, no, it's not very far behind. Wherever your senses are, the mind is not very far behind. That's how it happens. And he says, those I consciousness, I preside over. That means I am the master of all these. Without this, you will just be a piece of stone or wood. And this gives you my awareness with you, my being with you. Bhagwan being with us gives us an experience of the world. And then sometimes, why is it that when I am in one place, I seem to be at the same time in another place? We have seen that in lecture halls. My senses are very much there. My senses are in the same place. My eyes, my nose, my touch and my ears. And I can see the Swami. I can hear him. I can hear the lecture. And yet everything is, for a brief moment, sort of faded out, blanked out, because my mind chose to go to some other event in the past or the future. Which means what? Where the mind is, the self seems to follow. But actually it's the other way around. If your consciousness is not with your senses, you cannot even hear or touch or smell. It's the same like a dead person. A dead person's consciousness has gone elsewhere, right? And therefore that person, although the physical organs are there, cannot hear or smell or see. In the same way, for that briefest of moments, maybe a minute or two, or even less than that, my mind went to some other place. My consciousness was not there in the hall, and therefore I can't remember a word, because the words did not, I could hear, but the words made no sense. There was no sense of sight or sound or smell or touch for that moment. It's a proof that where consciousness is, there you are. And it's a proof that only and only consciousness can power our senses, because even when it chooses to move away for a brief moment, gone. Our sense of, the capacity of the senses are gone. That is the power and that is the ultimate power of consciousness. It's our powerhouse, and we don't use it to reach Krishna. We use it to reach our desired objects. That is the tragedy of a Vimuda. That's what Bhagavan is saying. And therefore, how can we use the powerhouse of our consciousness to be in that consciousness? That means to be with Bhagavan all the time. It's a choice we can make. And therefore, in verse number 10, Bhagavan explains that in the same way, gunas attach only to those people who are using the gunas as if they are attached to the gunas. Main sattvic hu, rajasic hu, tamasic hu. The moment you attach to it, you remain with it. The moment you pull away and remain with consciousness, consciousness remains with you. It doesn't mean consciousness goes anywhere. We are still alive. Our attention is not on it. So, for example, if I am not a man of literature, I may see a number of books in the shop. My attention won't go to it. It will go to the counter opposite. In the mall, there is a beautiful counter opposite where there is where there's jewelry displayed, maybe, or shoes or whatever. If my attention goes to jewelry and shoes, that's where I will develop my gunas and the direction of my life. So a man of literature recognizes literature and moves towards it. The one who knows a diamond very well will recognize a true diamond. In the same way, one who knows and has become aware because of meditation, has become aware that this is my true nature, this consciousness is me, it's always with me. It gives me the power and the capacity to experience the world, because for a moment, if it moves away, with my mind that is, I cannot even sense the world right there in front of me. I go blank. That powerhouse is me. The moment I know it, a rishi, it's like becoming an expert and saying, yes, now I know the truth. There's no going back for me. Going back to what? Vimurta. So the 10th verse says, Vimura nanu pasyanti jnana chakshuhu. You need jnana chakshu to see me. Otherwise we remain deluded. We'll come to verse number 10, how we delude ourselves. And we'll carry on tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. 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 Arpanamastu.